Welcome back. Well, today we are looking at the Jehovah's Witness website, and just on the main page there, it talks about how does God feel about terrorism. My good wife and I were having coffee while we looked at this, and she asks me, I wonder if disfellowshipping, how God feels about that, because really it's an act of terrorism as well. And so I did a little research, and sure enough, it is an act of terrorism. Now, let's just look at the Jehovah's Witness article first. We'll go right to jw.org. We zoom in on it. How does God feel about terrorism? So we zoom in on this article, and we have this picture here with all these people coming out of this town that's all blown up. Kind of sounds like what's going on in the Middle East right now. Maybe this article is written to attract some of the ones in the world that are going through terrorism right now. So if they were to read this article, it would give them some hope, perhaps, is what they're thinking. You see, folks, we got to keep in mind that Watchtower is a business. All religions are a business. The Mormons are a business. The Catholic Church is a business. The Seventh-day Adventists, they all run under businesses, and they all have a president, that they speak through. I think on the governing body, I think Kenneth Cook is the president, acting as president now. So, but anyways, here we see that their business model is pushing toward the terrorism, and that's big on the news right now. Will it ever end? They have a whole article here. How does God feel about it? They used a lot of the Old Testament scriptures, and then they used Jesus here in a bit to end terrorism. So they use Jesus when he's convenient. It's interesting. So to end terrorism, they say God promises to eliminate fear and violence. So here we have that fear and violence coming up. God's going to end it. Remove the root cause of terrorism. They're saying God will do that. And people won't do that. And then they say undo all effects of terrorism. God will heal all the people. And then they get to God will soon act. However, you may wonder, why hasn't God ended it already? To find the answer, watch the video. See, I knew it. They're tying everything into a video. So we're going to watch the video, and then we're going to read this definition of terrorism they have on the website here, right here. Now let's just read that first. It says, terrorism generally refers to the use or threat of violence, especially against civilians, to instill fear and bring about a political or religious or social objective. However, people may disagree on whether a particular act should be considered terrorism. So this is the Watchtower's definition. It's the right definition. I looked it up. Terrorism is referred to as using a threat of violence. So they're saying a threat of violence. Well, it could be just a threat. So violence comes in different forms. There's verbal abuse. There's physical abuse. Verbal abuse is just as bad as physical abuse. And it says especially against civilians. Well, we think of the Watchtower, the governing body, is using verbal abuse. They're using threats against its civilians, its followers. And what does it say here? To instill fear and bring about, to instill fear, here it is, to instill fear and bring about while they're not political, they are political because there's different levels. They're actually at the top. They're sitting in Jesus' right hand. They're the anointed elders in Jesus' right hand, the governing body. So that's a political position to be in. And then everyone else is underneath them. So it's a political and a religious and a social objective, because they're trying to recruit everyone, get everyone to fund them for their cause. You see? So they're instilling fear. How are they doing it? Well, we're going to read about that right at the very end here. But first of all, let's go to their video to see how they're selling their business. Okay, here it is.
Why does God allow suffering? Jehovah God didn't intend for humans to suffer. On the contrary, he gave the first human couple a wonderful start. But Satan, a rebel angel, called God a liar and influenced the first humans to reject God's authority. When Adam and Eve disobeyed God, they chose to follow Satan. They rebelled against Jehovah and decided for themselves what was right and wrong. Was Satan correct? Could humans rule themselves successfully without help from God? Time would be needed to settle the crucial issues raised by the rebels. To illustrate, a rebellious student claims that the teacher's method of instruction is wrong. He insists that he knows a much better way. Some students think that he is right, and they also become rebellious. What should the teacher do? He has the authority to reprimand the rebellious students, but what effect would that choice have on the other students? They may lose respect for the teacher, thinking that he is afraid of being proved wrong. But suppose the teacher allows the student to show the class his method. Then it would be proved to all present who is qualified to teach. Jehovah has done something similar to what the teacher does. When Satan challenged Jehovah, millions of angels were watching. How Jehovah handled the rebellion would greatly affect all those angels, and eventually all intelligent creation. Knowing this, Jehovah allowed Satan to rule this world for a time. Satan's rule has caused untold pain and suffering. However, once Jehovah's right and ability to rule is established beyond any doubt, Jehovah will undo all the damage caused by Satan's rebellion. At that time, only people who choose to follow God's standards will inhabit the earth. Until then, how can you cope with suffering? Where can you find comfort? To learn more about what the Bible says on this and many other topics, go to jw.org.
Well, what did you think? Why does God allow suffering? Did you buy into it? Are you going to sign up to a Bible study right about now? You see, this is what the goal is when they're putting together presentations like this. They're trying to sell the audience on how this all works. And the Watchtower is famous for claiming that they know it all, that they have the truth, and that they understand the whole big picture. Well, let's just run through this again. Why does God allow suffering? Well, they give the story, they show the suffering here today, and what it's like. They're drawing a parallel to what people are going through today with the terrorist attacks. So then they're showing here what happened in the Garden of Eden, the angels and the fruit, the woman, and they were kicked out of the garden, so they're wandering. And now I like this part. This part here is the student. The student, this is an old Live Forever book, you remember, folks? We used to, this illustration is right out of the old Live Forever book. We used to use it. And so imagine that it's not just one student. Imagine it's 1, 2, 3, like there's a whole pile of students standing up and raising the same issues, and then this doesn't fly, right? But they use this. It's not just one student. And the other thing is all these other students are actually getting out on the internet, and they're showing the same thing. We have issues with shunning, issues with the blood doctrine, and issues with the two-witness rule. There's no biblical basis for any of these things, for any of these issues. But yet, Watchtower, we can show all the evidence in the world. Watchtower will twist this and call us an apostate and use these kind of illustrations. So it's kind of kindergarten, in my opinion. But let's carry on. Then they paint this picture of the heavenly thing, and they're waiting, and Satan's in charge, and Satan, Satan, Satan. You see, this gets the fear going. Let's listen to this.
Jehovah will undo all ever. Once Jehovah's right and ability to rule is established beyond any doubt, Jehovah...
So I kind of thought that was humorous. They threw the machine gun noises in there into this little cartoon video. So then they get into this paradise earth thing. Jehovah's going to bring about paradise earth. You ever go on holidays and you're going for a 2-week holiday, let's say? Like I've went for a lot of 7-day holidays, or just take 3 days here or there. You do 3 days and it's not quite enough. You do 7 days and it's just perfect, but maybe not quite enough. But you do 2 weeks and it's too much. You know, you can only sit under a palm tree and drink pina coladas, read a book, play volleyball in the sand, swim in the pool. You can only do that for so long, and you get tired of it. You know, so, you know, life is full of purpose. This whole facade of living on the earth for ever and ever and ever and ever, it doesn't appeal to me. I don't know about you guys. I'd appreciate your thoughts, and it's not even in the New Testament. This is an Old Testament Psalms, where they talk about Psalms 37 and 29. It was a psalm that the Israelites would sing as they were going through the desert, because it was all sand and the wind was blowing, and they were dreaming of an oasis. So this was part of the picture that they painted. As you learn more about the Bible, you'll learn that a lot of the Old Testament was folklore, was stories, and they helped the nation to kind of figure things out. And that's a whole nother discussion. But Jehovah's Witnesses have taken some of these, they cherry-picked a few of these scriptures, and they paint this picture. Without Psalms 37 and 29, they cannot paint this picture. They have to have the Old Testament. Jesus said, "My kingdom is no part of this world." So I'll let you be the judge. So anyways, on this little fairy tale, they paint that you're going to live on earth for how can you cope? Well, you just pray. Where can you find comfort? Well, of course, it's at the Kingdom Hall, you know, in the Bible, you know, so they're going to offer you a Bible study. And that's how this stuff all works. Now we're going to go back to their site, and we're right here at their site. I'm going to blow it up for you guys. Now, they're saying the Bible offers us good reason to believe that God will act soon. We did the video, and then we read that thing on terrorism. Generally refers to the use of threat of violence, especially against civilians. So we think of terrorism. You know, the Watchtower itself uses terrorism on its own people. So how do we know that? Well, let's just flip over to this article, Jehovah's Witnesses Congregational Discipline. This is off Wikipedia. So we'll blow it back up. And it talks all about it. There's pages and pages and pages of information on here. We're going to go all the way down to critical view of this, because we cover off on a lot of this stuff on some of our other videos, but this is important here. Critical view. The only way to officially leave Jehovah's Witnesses is to disassociate or be disfellowshipped, and both entail the same set of prohibitions and penalties with no provision for continued normal association. So Jehovah's Witnesses state that disfellowshipping is a scripturally documented method to protect the congregation from the influence of those who practice serious wrongdoing. Critics contend that the judicial process itself, due to its private and nearly autonomous nature, directly contradicts the precedent found in the Bible and the organization's own teachings, and can be used in an arbitrary manner if there is no consensus among just a few to abuse their authority. I don't know if you got that, folks, but it's a witch hunt. All you need to say is they're an apostate, and now they will witch hunt you and burn you at the stake. It's the same thing. According to Raymond Franz, a letter dated September 1st, 1980 from the Watchtower Society to all circuit and district overseers, advised that a member who merely disagrees in thought with any of the Watchtower Society's teachings is committing apostasy and is liable for disfellowshipping. And the letter states that one does not have to promote different doctrines to be an apostate, adding that elders need to discern between one who is a troublemaking apostate and a Christian who becomes weak in faith and has doubts. So here he's saying it right here. The letter states that that they merely disagree with the thought of any of the Watchtower's teachings is committing apostasy and is liable for disfellowshipping. That's it in a nutshell. So if you disagree with the shunning policy, the blood doctrine, or the two-witness rule, the three big things, you're going to be an apostate, and you're going to be shunned for life. You don't want to be reinstated to a religion that covers up crimes, pedophilia crimes especially. You don't want to be a part of it. So therefore you are put into, well, I call it solitary confinement. So I want to look at this next display here. Solitary confinement, which is also referred to as segregation, isolation, or separation, is the practice of confining an individual in custody to a cell. So it's very similar. We think it's isolation or separation, and it's the practice of confining an individual to a state, to a position, so that none of the family or friends will ever talk to that person ever again, unless they, of course, get reinstated and followed through the proper channels for that. Now, this moves us into our next article, religious terrorism. And we'll zoom in on this, religious terrorism. This is a type of, they call it religious violence, where terrorism is used as a strategy to achieve certain religious goals, which are influenced by the religious beliefs and or identity. So Jehovah's Witnesses aren't using violence, but they're using what they call theocratic warfare or spiritual warfare. And they call it warfare, and they prepare everyone for it. And they give all kinds of lessons on this spiritual warfare. So the warfare is that they disfellowship and shun those that disagree. And here's some of the other things that they're using. Goes on to talk about the definition here. According to Jernsmeyer, religion and violence have a symbolic relationship since before the Crusades, and even since before the Bible. He defines religious terrorism as consisting of acts that terrify, the definition of which is provided by the witnesses and the ones terrified, and not by the party committing the act, accompanied by either a religious motivation, justification, organization, or worldview. And religion is sometimes used in combination with other factors and sometimes used as a primary motivation. Religious terrorism is intimately connected to current forces of geopolitics. And geopolitics is a study of the effects of the Earth's geography on politics, international relations. While geopolitics usually refers to countries and relations between them, it may also focus on two other kinds of states: de facto independent states with limited international recognition and relations. Now, here's another fella here, Bruce Hoffman. He's characterized modern religious terrorism as having three traits. And I could side with this. We can find the parallels with Jehovah's Witness religion. It says the perpetrators must use religious scriptures to justify or explain their violent act to gain recruits. So disfellowshipping, they're using their scriptures to justify it. They're calling them the perpetrators. Now, the clerical figures must be involved in the leadership roles. That's the governing body. They're the clerical figures. And then number 3, the perpetrators use apocalyptic images of destruction to justify the acts. So they talk about this Armageddon coming, these apocalyptic images. The end is around the corner, and this is what they scare people with, and this is how they use this to justify their acts. Well, folks, they call this religious terrorism. So when we compare that to what Jehovah's Witnesses are promoting on their website, well, I really don't think they have the freedom of speech to talk about terrorism when they themselves are committing religious terrorism on their own people. What do you think? Appreciate your comments. Well, folks, until next time, keep living your life with love. Bye for now.